Hey guys, Long Haul Larry. It's time to drop this big old beast in there. I'm still missing some parts, waiting for the mailman to get them here, the trucker or whatever. But yeah, it's time to drop this thing in there. We can put the stuff on afterwards. It's time to keep moving forward, so let's get her in. I think that's pretty close. Those are in. I think it's going to have to go that way just a little bit towards the driver's side. I think the whole motor is going to have to shimmy over, which I can do with pry bars and stuff. So yeah, look at that. The big beast is sitting at home again. Whew. It's a lot of work getting it to that point. This was a little bigger job than what I thought. Doing the whole complete restoration on a time frame that I put myself into. It's been fun. What's this? A little metal clip or something. I'm like, oh no, did it come out of the motor or something? Came off a paint can. Alright, so I gotta secure this motor, and I'm gonna secure it, and then put the nuts on there, and that way I can get my lift out of there. Alright guys, we're going to get this transmission ready to throw in. And first we could talk about the components of it. This is a brand new rebuilt transmission. I think it cost $4,000 to rebuild this transmission. It was still working properly and everything. How do I want to say this without making it sound bad? It was kind of like a Ford. Ford transmissions are very fickle. They have to have, they talk about it, if you put it in reverse, sometimes it takes a little bit to back up. It takes a little bit, you know, when you take off first time or something, you get in, you start your vehicle and put it in reverse, it kind of doesn't go, and then it grabs and goes. It's Ford, they say it has to be the right weight of oil, the velocity of the oil has to be correct to make their transmissions work properly and stuff. They're good transmissions. This 44N something, 4100 something like that, and it's a good trend. I mean, it did fine and everything else, but I decided I wanted to rebuild it now since I was doing everything else. So I took it into professional, had a professional rebuild the thing, and he said for him to do it and for him to warranty it, he had to replace everything in it. That's what you want to do. So I said, do what you got to do. You feel, you know, I felt comfortable with the guys, so I did that. One of the things was he put a bigger torque converter in it. This is the torque converter. It slides on these here shafts. And you have to be kind of careful when putting a torque converter in. You can kind of see the shafts here. There's a spline shaft right here. There's a spline shaft right here. There's also another spot. There's like a 3-stage thing to it. And in the inside, it's not a spline, but it's kind of like tabs. And that's actually what drives, as it spins, it's actually what drives the pump inside. The pump, all the fluid and everything, the transmission fluid. And so when you put this on, you gotta be careful, because you have to line up these teeth on here on this spline, which is down inside here. Then you got the secondary teeth that have to get lined up. Those have to get lined up and everything inside the torque converter. And then inside, on some of them, the torque converter can have like a groove cut in them. And then on the other end, on the 180 degrees over here, I'll have another groove cut on it. And there'll be like 2 tabs in there. And when you slide a torque converter in there, You kind of spin it, it goes in, it seems like it's in, but then you spin it, and all of a sudden, boom, it goes in a little farther. You got to make sure that those teeth, those grooves line up, and those tabs that are up inside behind the seal. And if you don't, then when you put it into the vehicle, you're going to put it in there and it might have a gap or something, and you grab some bolts and you put some bolts in there, and you know, things are just not lined up, and I'll just pull it tight. What you'll actually do is you'll bend those tabs over, and then your oil pump won't run properly. It'll skip them. And then your oil pump will be skipping in there, and it won't pump the fluid through the transmission well. So the easiest way to do it, let me get my flashlight, is to look up inside there. And on this one here, it has flat spots that the pump grabs on each side of it instead of like a tab. And if you look up inside there, you can see the flat spots on there. And so you kind of want to line it up kind of correctly to where you see those tabs with these flat spots. Then you're going to put the torque converter in. Okay, so it's in there now, and it's with those teeth. But now you just gotta rock it. There it went. Boom. See that all locked in place and everything? And so you gotta make sure that it's in all the way. And the other thing is, if you have a used transmission and you pull this apart, you're gonna lose some oil, because this torque converter, it gets filled with transmission fluid. And when you pull it out, it's gonna leak and everything. But when you go to put it back in, if you're putting the same one back in, or if you buy a used transmission, there's going to be fluid inside here. But this is a brand new one, and so we do not have any fluid inside here. So we have to add transmission fluid into the torque converter. If you don't, this is going to be dry, and by the time it gets all pumped up in here, it's going to be too late. So it's going to wreck some things. So we got to put some transmission fluid in here. And the transmission fluid that I trust is this right here. This is AMSOIL. If I can make a recommendation, AMSOIL, they make a product and they know what they're doing. I've been doing a lot of research about oils and everything else over the years and stuff. AMSOIL is actually right here. It's Superior, Wisconsin. It's right over by Minnesota. And they're basically the first ones in the oil business to make synthetic stuff. And synthetic has some really good characteristics that help with longevity, bearings, and and engines run and everything else. Well, it also works really good for transmissions. And one of the main things is that they use certain properties in it. It's a PAO characteristics in their synthetics that are very pure. And what it does is it keeps the same consistency for longer periods of time. If it gets hot, it gets cold, it stays the same. Where other fluids out there that are synthetic and stuff, there's a lot of companies that make synthetic stuff, but they're not all the same. A lot of them are like type 3 and all this other stuff they use for their base and their synthetics and everything, and those are not the same. The main thing is that they'll work for like a certain amount of period of time, and then they just fall. And one of the big things that really got me going on these is on AMSOIL and like the transmission fluid is something like Cummins. Or not Cummins, Allison. They're a huge transmission company. They build a lot of transmissions. And if you actually look at their warranty, if you use a synthetic transmission fluid, they'll cover it under warranty. But you have to change your transmission fluid every 30,000 miles unless you use synthetic transmission fluid that is PAOW based, which I think Mobil has one. I think Castrol does too, and so does AMSOIL. And so this is the stuff I'm using in here. It's not that more expensive than other stuff. And it's just, I trust it and everything else. And so we need to dump this in here and get some fluid in there, get it going. The thing is that you can use this stuff and you can start your vehicle up and it could be -40. And the velocity and the consistency of the oil is going to stay the same. You can start this thing up in really hot temperatures. And guess what? It's going to be the same. So it's just a good thing to have as a security. And I mean, I paid a lot of money for this transmission to be rebuilt and everything. I want this thing to last for a long time. So we're gonna use a real high quality oil. Probably gonna be somewhere around in there. I'm gonna lower down a little bit. Guess I should see what socket I need. Probably 19. Yep. Yep, a 19. All right, now we're down here at the engine, and here's your flex plate, flywheel, whatever you want to call it. And it's not really a flywheel, but you should be able to just push the torque converter up there. Wasn't quite all seated where it's head against it. That means it's not been pushed in, so that's good. Now, he didn't include new nuts with this. I don't know why. You want to put lock nuts on here, so I'm just gonna put a washer on, and I wasn't able to get a flange lock nut. So I got just a regular lock nut. And not one of those nylon ones either. You don't want one of those, because there can be some heat generated down in here. Once you get to that point and you're going to torque them, just take a vice grips and clamp it on right over by there, over on the other side of the flex plate, and just clamp the vice grips on over there, and then you'll be able to torque them down and tighten them up and stuff without turning the motor over and stuff. So you just put that on there. So I don't think you guys need to really see this. This is just kind of this boring thing here, and just cranking down on this stuff. And we'll just keep on moving around. All right, guys, let's get this transfer case put in here. If you don't know what a transfer case is, it is what makes it a four-wheel drive truck. There's a motor cylinder in there, it's gear network. When you push the four-wheel drive on the truck, the button inside the truck, it activates that motor and it switches it over, so it takes the power that's going back to through your drive line, converts it over to the gears over here, and turns this one up here, which goes back to your front axle. Transfer case. So we got this here gasket. There's a dowel pin down here on this. It's lined up. There is some pitting and corrosion on there, and it's only a little tiny spot that actually seals it. This surface over here has a real nice wide spot, but not in there. All right, get this thing in. Daryl, too much. Now that I got it on the ship, I should be able to turn it. I can do this by hand. I just don't feel like doing it. Holding it up in there by hand and stuff. Where's the hole? There we go. Alright, it's got that one in the bottom. That's going to be a tricky one to get. It'll take me a while. Alright, guys. It's time to start putting in a transmission. Time to start putting in drive line.
So we can start a couple bolts. And we can our carrier bearing. And I have new bolts with lock nuts going here, and the carrier bearing and tightening this up. And how I was saying that you could maybe, you know, line it up side by side and stuff. There is no alignment side by side on this. On diesel trucks, there usually is. There's you can move it back and forth, and there's usually a set of holes. You can kind of line it up real nice. It is lined up really straight. And I'm going off what the guy told me that I bought the truck from. He said that he's been having these because he had an extra carrier bearing in a box in the back seat. And he's like, I've had to replace, he goes, I don't know what's going on. He goes, but I've had to replace carrier bearing in this thing almost every year since I've owned it. And I put it up in there and I started to tighten it up. And I think that it's sitting too high. See, now if you put a lift kit in this truck, they actually come with drop down brackets. You can increase the size of this and drop it down for however far you're lifting, so it's a more gradual drop and everything. But I'm looking at this, and if I tighten it up, the drive shaft would pretty much kind of go straight, and then it drops right there. And I think that's why they're going out. So what I've done is I've actually put 3 good thick washers underneath here. And I think this is going to be pretty close. So we're going to tighten this up and see what's going on here. I think that's going to fix a lot of this problem. That surely did. It's really super close to straight now. Guys, I think I'm going to take it apart and put one more washer in there. I think one more will give me the perfect angle going down. And I think that's going to fix the problem with these carrier bearings going on in this truck. Ooh, look at that. That's a tight drive line now, not no more clunkety clunk clunk. Now that I'm creating this gap and setting the right angle, when you tighten this up, it squishes that rubber around the carrier bearing and holds it nice and tight. Now there's nothing in there, that rubber's moving. I think I'm going to have to take like a 3/8 plate and cut it and make a spacer. So right now I got 3 washers. Whatever the thickness is of 4 washers, I'm going to make it out of a plate of steel. I'm going to make a drop down plate myself. And alright guys, I have made a kind of like a drop down plate here. It sits down here and kind of encapsulates that rubber so it can't go side to side. But here it is, piece of 3/8 steel. Just like so. It's like 4.5 washers. I gotta try to pull this back up in there. I'm gonna have to. going to be right. There we go. All right, guys, let's put this one in. Let's put this, this four-wheel drive shaft in here. There's some duct tape wrapped around the caps on this U-joint to make sure they didn't fall off. That one. So basically just sits down into the front axle there. And then there's these little cap deals. And they just sit over the top of it. And it's got these little bolts, put thread lock on them. Go. That end is in. We put the end with our whole CV axle deal that we rebuilt. I'm definitely not going to be able to get the impact on these. I have to do this all by wrench. So this is, it's a cover that goes on the bottom where I was underneath there and I tied up those torque converter nuts. This cover covers up that whole hole where the flex plate is and all that stuff. And there's bolts that go on there that holds it on there. There's actually a tab broken off right here. And I think there's another one here. I gotta put it up underneath there and see. But I thought that was the tab. I thought it's been laying down here, but it was a chunk of a gasket or something. I'm gonna cut this off and weld a piece of tab on there and drill a new hole through it, and I'll see where this lines up and do the same thing for here. That way, if I just put it in with the way it is right now, and put the bolt holes in there that are there, it's probably going to vibrate. And every time you're sitting at a stop sign or something like that, you're going to have this ting, 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 this little metal thing, you know, bouncing against the motor, against the block. And so we don't want that. So we're going to make this right and everything, fix this up. Let's see where it was leaking here, coming down through here. Either the rear main or the back of the oil pan. I think it was the back of the oil pan. Shouldn't have that problem now. I also, too, I just saw this. I got to put this skid plate. Put the skid plate on now. This goes up underneath the frame, and it covers up the transfer case. It's a big steel plate. So if you go out in the woods, go over a log or something, or because someone comes out the road, doesn't hit something and hits this, it takes the impact, which I think it's already taken an impact. You can see how it's bent. So I will straighten that out before I put it back on there. The fuel tank has one just like this underneath. I repaved it and everything. It's got one that runs the entire length of the whole fuel tank. But otherwise than that, we are good to go. We are ready. We have transmission, transfer case, both drive axles, and we're installed. So I'm going to finish those couple little things, and we'll be done with that stage of this. And next we'll be moving on to some motor stuff, mounting turbos and brackets up on the front, start adding on. I did get my exhaust manifolds in. I can put those in. And if I can get the turbo mounted on there, which I can, I don't have to wait for wiring or none, because I have valve cover I still don't have. So I can mount all that stuff up, then I can run my Y pipes up, and I can run the exhaust pipe down, tap into the exhaust pipe there, get the right length, weld up that, and then put the final cover that goes over the top of the whole exhaust system. There's a cover here that detracts the heat from getting up into the cab, so I can put that back on there. And yeah, we're moving right along. I'm hoping it's going to be within a week here. This truck is going to be driving on the road. That's what I'm shooting for.
So I'm going to let you guys go. I hope everybody out there is having themselves a great day and a great night or whatever it is whenever you're watching this video. I don't know why I'm getting really high at the end of words. But if you're not, certainly try that all over again tomorrow. I'll catch you later. Bye.